nothing but true about a girl that I once knew. She took my heart then ran around with every single guy in town. Bitch.
I haven't got you doing the shopping, has she?
Sure.
Hiya, Sally. I just want cornflakes. You can't drink cornflakes. You're looking very stylish.
Thank you.
So if you don't want to cry like I do, I keep away from run around. So come on, hurt, sing.
Well, that's the message done for another week, as they say. And where I was getting my shopping is Conswater Shopping Centre, of course. But years before that, it was the Belfast Ropeworks Company. This particular yard actually used to be completely covered in as storage sheds. And it contained cord, string, baler twine, huge ropes that used to pull ocean liners. And it was very much a big part of the industry, probably the biggest ropeworks in the world in actual fact. And this would have been the gate my father used to bring his lorries in, with me on board, of course, into the ropeworks. We hadn't that far to come because we just lived in the street right here. Because this is Greenville Street, that wee house down in the middle there. And this wall was about 3 times the height of it. And when you're only a wee fella about that size, it was a giant wall. It dominated the whole street. And when you woke up every morning, that's the first thing you saw, the Belfast Ropework wall. You didn't actually know if the sun was out till you walked around the corner. Greenville Street, I suppose, was your typical East Belfast kitchen houses, but it had a slight difference because it was made up of about 3 or 4 of these yards. Now, these yards were used for all different sorts of purposes. People would keep their horse and cart in it. There was a greengrocer, a coalman, a builder, and my uncle in one of these yards, believe it or not, kept pigs and chickens, yes, in the middle of East Belfast. All the flagstones have all gone, but I do notice that the original old cobblestones leading into the gateways are still exactly the same where the horse and carts would have went over. Because there was a few yards in the street, we were allowed a bonus of 2 rooms over the yard, and they were known as spare rooms. And we put these to good use, I'll tell you, because the front spare room, we had a lodger in there, and the back spare room, well, that's what I used to use for my wee group to rehearse in.
And it was pure innocence in those days, pure innocence. I mean, all you did was kiss. Do you remember? Used to have the Olympian kissing. See how long you could hold your breath for. Just kissing, no tongues, no nothing. Just kissing. You're standing there in the entry and you fancied this girl. You didn't want her to go in. You're afraid of saying the wrong thing. Standing there for about 20 minutes kissing up the entry. Eventually you summoned up the courage and you said, "Could you open your coat, love?" Yous all did it. Yous all did it. You need be shy away.
The thing I remember best of all, I don't know whether you used it or not, was remember the time you used to pour water along the street in the winter and make a slide?
No. I remember that, yeah.
Remember doing that?
No, huh?
You were taking a run and flipping, going along the water and everything, but nights were brilliant for kids, like in the street. You don't see it anymore now. Did you have TV?
Yeah. Through the first of the street.
Well, Billy Phillips was the first round the corner in Greenville Avenue to have a TV. And we all used to, the first show I ever seen was that introduction, Richard Green and Robin Hood.
Yeah. But you remember this guy, you probably won't remember him, like on TV, Elton Hayes, you remember him? He's one of the first people I saw on TV playing guitar. A folk singer, Elton Hayes.
Yes,
Elton
Hayes.
did like Mr. Froggy and all that
Yeah,
stuff, and he was in Robin Hood. He played that guy in Robin Hood, Alan Adele.
Remember that? I don't know what it was really about our wee house in Greenville Street, but all my mates seemed to like to go there. There was a certain warmth about it. They all gathered there night and day, in actual fact. Billy, who was one of my closest friends who I met at school, he practically slept in our house. Used to let his mother know I'm staying over the night in Geordie's. Van just lived round the corner and he was always round with us every day. I don't know whether it was my mother really who was the sort of the figure who made them all feel comfortable and warm, but she was always there ready with a wee cup of tea and talking to them and how's your mother and how's your father keeping and everything. She was a great wee woman actually. I don't know, there was something sparkling about her, even on her wedding day. She just looked wonderful. Later on, when we got a bit older, of course, and Billy and Van and Roy, we formed our own band. She actually got a bit angry with me because Van and I had fallen out at a show, and I'd said, right, that's it, you're out of the band, and forgot about him for the whole week. And we were in Belfast, our usual Saturday hunt at Crimble's and the coffee shops, and we arrived back home to our house about 5 o'clock. And there's Van sitting there in the house, down in the mouth. My mother came straight out of the scullery and she practically hit me a clip across the ear. She says, this wee boy's been around here all day complaining that you threw him out of the band. She says, let him back into the band now, right now. They all used to call her Ma Jones, which I thought was very affectionate too. So it'll take a long while in this life for me to lose the memory of her, I'll tell you.
If I look for cloudy skies, you will know the rain from the tears in my eyes. You'll never know that I still love you so, though the heartaches remain. I'll do my crying in the rain.
As a child, I went to Elm Grove Primary School and I used to walk home every day past this building, which was the Ona Cork Mill, just one of many mills that was in the East Belfast area. And never in my lifetime did I have an opportunity to do what I'm doing now, and that's stand right up here on the top of the mill and overlook what I would call my Bloomfield. If you look past the steeple there, that takes you up into Castlereagh Hills, and that's where my Granny Jones used to keep her cows for her wee milk business as she had. And if you come down here, you see Beersbridge Road and all these houses and streets. And funny enough, I've never had an opportunity. It's brilliant to look down my street from this height, Greenville Street. And it also lets me see the actual beginning of the rope works, which proves to me now that it was the biggest in the world, because it started there, went right down the whole area to the Albert Bridge Road down there. And if you can see down there, just there's triangular sort of buildings with black roofs. That's what the old rope work sheds used to look like in its entirety. And beyond that, another mill, as I said, and more industry indeed, because Harlan Wolf's and then Short and Harlan's, the oil rigs. And beyond that, you had the Docklands area, where my father spent most of his life with me on board in his wee lorry.
Oh, Belfast, Belfast, a wonderful town. It doesn't matter if your skin is brown. Belfast, Belfast, I love you. If you're out of work, you can get improved. Oh, Belfast, Belfast, a wonderful town. It doesn't matter if your skin is brown. Belfast, Belfast, I love you.
I can't believe this. After all these years, in a lorry like this is just absolutely wonderful. It's exactly the type of lorry my father used to drive, and he treated it like a baby, I have to tell you. He refurbished it every few months, repainted it himself, refloored it, because it was a flat lorry. That's what it was known as in those days. And in lorries like this, my father did everything. Spent his life, he delivered pigeon hampers at the weekend, even did furniture removing, which were known as flittings, of course. And he even took people up to the Castlereagh Hills during the Blitz, I have to say. But his main area was down here, all around the docks. And round here, ships would come in from all over the world, delivering cargoes everywhere. His main cargo that he used to pick up all the time on these lorries was raw sisal hemp that came from India and South America, and he packed it onto the back of the lorry. And when I say pack it onto the lorry, he manhandled it every bale himself, because he was a big, big man, my dad. I mean, I'm a skinny wee fella, but compared to him, he was a giant. The only thing I inherited from him were big, big hands.
Belfast, Belfast, I love you. If you're out of work, you can get improved.
And on our way to these destinations where these cargoes from around the world, we used to stop off at a wee cafe just up the docks, which was known as the ITL. And I got first introduced at about the age of 5 or 6 to my first baking soda. Boy, it was fantastic. Grease dripping down your fingers. And you know something? Even at my age, I felt I'd become a man.
So Jackie and Alec walked into the bar in the centre of the town, all mirrors everywhere. And Jackie says to Alec, oh God, look at this. He said you can have a shave in every corner here. So they settled down. About 2 hours later, they're absolutely blitzed out of their brains. Jackie nudges Alec. He says, Alec, it's Sue. He says, you're not going to believe this, but Sue, sitting over there facing us in the booth, there's a buck agent and he's a ringer for you. And Alec says, oh God, you're right, Jackie, you're right, Paul, you're right. And he says, I'll tell you better than that. The tube sitting beside him's a spitting on me to you. And he stands up and he says, I'm going over to buy them a drink. And Jackie says, no, sit down there, coming over to buy us one.
Apart from being involved in the haulage business, my father's little hobby was bookmaking, or making a book at the point-to-point races. And because of this, he met all sorts of different colourful characters, one of which was a very well-known Irish tenor by the name of James Madole, who frequently performed in this particular hall, the Ulster Hall, packed it to the doors. And I think it was because of him that I had my first stage appearance at the age of 5. It all started when he used to make frequent visits to my father's house. And of course, on every one of these occasions, my mother would insist that I would do my party piece to this great Irish tenor. My party piece consisted of a rendition of Hello, Patsy Fagan and a terrible impersonation of Al Jolson doing Mammy. Oh, Mammy, my little Mammy. Of course, he thought it was wonderful. Every time I did this, little boy in short trousers, he applauded it. And he said, I'm going to give you a special reward. And I told him what my reward hopefully would be. And that was a little miniature horse and cart. I'd always wanted one. And he said, the next time I'm coming back, I'll bring it with me. But he never did. And then on one occasion, he gave tickets to my father to bring me along, and my mother, to one of his concerts here in the Ulster Hall. And we duly sat just about over there in the front row. And in the middle of his concert, he sort of stopped everything. He said, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a young entertainer, and I'm sure if I asked him nicely to come up and give us a song. Of course, my mother cringed totally at this, but up I got, short trousers, wee cap, up onto the stage and went through my whole Al Jolson bit. I'd walk 1,000,000 miles for one of your smiles, my mammy. Of course, it tore the place apart, little boy at the age of 5. And he says, now I've got a special surprise. And here's me thinking, my horse and cart at last after all this time. And he squeezed a bit of paper into my hand. He said, that's for you. The piece of paper turned out to be one of these, which in those days was worth a lot of money, £5. But what did I do? Scrunch it up. I said, I don't want that. I said, I want my horse and cart, and stormed off the stage. And by this time, my mother was on the floor with embarrassment, and the whole place was coming down in raptures.
You doggies gonna have a pub here, ha! And we're running out of coal. No enchiladas in the icebox. Oh, and the television's broke. I see that lipstick on your sweatshirt. I smell that perfume in your ear. And if you wanna go a dancing, don't bring your business back here. Everybody, Speedy. Why don't you come home? Hey, Speedy Gonzales. Why don't you leave me all alone?
Quick, hurry up, Cassie. Come on down to Spar. They're giving out soda fires and Vita.
I've been singing songs since I was a wee fella, but by the time I got to the age of 10, I was introduced to pop records. My sister brought the first 2 records into our house, and they were Elvis singing All Shook Up and Little Richard doing Long Tall Sally. And after that, I was totally sold on rock and roll. I was also dying about a guitar. I just really wanted to have a guitar. And there was a fella up the street, he's now a pastor actually. His family bought him a guitar. They could probably afford it, we couldn't. But we had a joiner who worked up the back of my father's yard here, and he said, why don't you make your own? He didn't want to get involved, of course, so he just gave me wee scraps of wood and he left me to it. And after much perseverance, it turned out it was something very much like this here. Bits of fuse wire and bits of old wood. I could try to practice really get... used to practice like mad, just trying to get a chord or any sort of sound out of it at all. And there'd be hours under the blankets practicing like mad, until it became evident, of course, and my sister realised that I was going to need a real guitar. Why is it that mothers and fathers never buy you guitars? It's always my sister bought me mine.
Well, my father brought mine. He bought mine. Smithfield.
Who bought yours from?
Smith, my dad bought it.
The first one,
yeah.
Smithfield?
I bought Joe Kavanagh. No, it was next door to Joe Kavanagh.
There was about 3 or 4.
Yeah,
But I remember your guitar.
It was a fiver.
Your guitar was
red.
No, but it hadn't a hole in it. It was F holes in it.
Oh, that was the second one. That was the second one.
The Hofner?
The Hofner F-hole one. Yeah.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
At one stage, everybody was just into learning guitars, right? And they're all copying of each other. There wasn't any real sort of music. It was sort of jamming, playing together. No sort of groups had formed. Our street seemed to be, everybody who had a guitar came around to our street.
Well, it's the same as Hangford Street, which was just round the corner. Same thing. There's loads of people playing.
And what did this big guy called Chuck Rainey from
The big
Bloomfield
tall
Avenue,
fella,
big
tall
tall
lad. I
fella.
remember him.
And he got this THS bass. You get a different note by putting back. Hold it against the washboard. In other words, that's it. Hold them on, and that'll keep it on. And you have to go like this. Hey! It takes a worried man to sing a worried song. Oh Lord, it takes a worried man to sing a worried song. It takes a worried man to sing a worried song. I'm worried now, boom, won't be worried long. All together, it takes a worried man to sing a worried song. Oh Lord, it takes a worried man to sing a worried song. It takes a worried man to sing a worried song. I'm worried now, but I won't be worried long. Bum, bum, bum. Skiffle music was wonderful stuff. Very simple too. And you know something, it didn't cost you much money because you made all your own instruments. So we had a skiffle group, and the name of that was Danny Sands and the Javelins. What we needed now was our first gig, and we found it right across here at the Strand Cinema in East Belfast. It was at the ABC Miners Matinee, one rainy Saturday morning. Saw 7 little figures coming up the Hollywood Road carrying their tea chests, washboards and everything else. Boy, we were as proud as punch, I'll tell you. And we were just dying to get going. We had to perform 2 songs, and would you believe that out of the 5 guitar players, only one of them knew more than 1 chord. We got launched into our 2 songs, and at the end of the performance, we got 10 shillings between 7 of us. Not much, really, but did we care? Nah. As far as we were concerned, we were professional. We never could get a place to rehearse.
That's right.
And the only thing we could get was my dad's lorry.
Yeah.
I remember as well the out flat lorry.
Yeah.
And geez, you arrived with it. Were you the first one to get an amplifier? I think he was the first one to have
probably
an
was,
amplifier.
that
Because I remember we all plugged into your
That's right. Everything was going through the one amp.
There's a Grampian microphone.
Like the microphone and everything going through that, yeah. And then, you said to me, like, plug it, go ahead, plug it in there. The plug was up there. The
light socket.
Yeah, the light socket, that's right, the light socket. It was raining at the time, actually. And I went like this. Got electrocuted. Put my finger out. My finger was actually in the thing.
It's hair pressed up.
Come on, baby, be my guest. Yeah, join the party, need to rest. Everything's gonna be alright. Look at her hair. Guess tonight. Yeah, I said we're gonna dance to the rock and roll. Ooh, we're gonna eat went to the stove. We're gonna teach you how to CQ. A special party just for you. Hey, my, oh my.
But whilst the music was carrying on, of course, we had to contend with school, a very important part of a young lad's life. And at the age of 11, I set the technical exam, that's what it's called in those days. I managed to secure a place right across the road here at the College of Technology. I was taking a Belfast Corporation bus twice a day from way over there in Bloomfield into the centre of the town. And this big wide city of Belfast, it certainly made a young lad perk up a bit, I'll tell you.
I said we're gonna dance, the band's gonna play. I'm gonna make you queen for a day. Everything's gonna be alright. Hey, so be my guest tonight. Come on.
Look at this here. This is a for people who eat buns, this is a paradise. Currant squares. I can't remember what you call these. I used to love them. I used to eat about 2 or 3 of these a day. This particular place is about 60 years old. It's called Marshall's, and every Saturday Billy McAllen, Roy Keane, myself and Van could be seen here drinking coffee. We actually didn't like coffee really, but it was the thing to do. What can I get you today? Anne is training me. Underneath the buzzer, you put right in and pull that down. Yes, madam, you're having coffee. Sounds very rude. There's no refunds, but...
Fine, that's okay. Thank you.
In our house in East Belfast, you wouldn't have had coffee. I mean, tea was about it. But you see, we felt that if you were in a coffee bar, as it was called, you know, you heard about the famous Two Eyes coffee bar in London. Cliff Richard was discovered there. We felt at the age of 13 or 14, you were going to be discovered if you sat in a coffee bar. I mean, that's how simple it was. So it was music and coffee. Never any drink or anything like that. I mean, drinking coffee was a big enough adventure for a 13 or 14-year-old, I can assure you. Give him a bit of discount because I didn't put froth on the top. 55 for tea, okay. Tea out.
Just can't believe the way you count.
Well, if I threw 232 at you quickly out of a tenner.
I work in the bank, don't go
Oh, sorry, couldn't have picked the horse back. But when those cotton folks get a rockin', they don't pick very much cotton anymore. Cotton fields back home. It was down in Louisiana, just about a mile from Texarkana, in them old cotton fields back home. It was in places like this that we used to come in and find out all about guitars and the latest things that came in from around the world. And not only were the shops really, but there were meeting places for all the musicians. You used to come in and try out different chords that people had learned, because you could never afford to pay for guitar lessons and stuff. Some of the guitars, I have to say to you, were just totally out of the question to try and buy. Hire purchase was the name of the game then. And then you used to fancy yourself as a lead player, and you used to learn boogie music. And it was so all you could do when you were looking for ideas for guitars was really following what you saw on the television or what you saw from the music papers. And Buddy Holly, people like Buddy Holly and Hank B. Marvin, they were leading the way with guitars like this. This was the famous Fender guitar, which everybody has coveted and wanted it at one stage in their lives. I certainly did want one. If you knew, Peggy Sue, just how my heart yearns for you. Oh, Peggy. My Peggy Sue, well I love you, gal. I want you, Peggy Sue. Tell you something, you thought, just when you held that, you thought you were Buddy Holly. It was brilliant. But once I saw the first one of these coming in from America, it was 1959, I got the first sunburst version of this guitar. It was a Fender Precision. There's only 3 came into Belfast. And that's when we first really, I suppose, the Monarchs became a real band, because we had a full lineup then. Billy on lead, me on bass, Van Morrison on saxophone, Roy Keane on drums, and Wesley Black on piano. We were a fully fledged band, and we were ready to go. You remember the first Scottish guy we ever met? No,
French?
No, this guy called Bill Carson.
Bill Carson.
He was a guy. I was in Crimbles one day. I don't know whether it was on my own or it was during the week or what. And this guy was playing bass, and he was doing things like boogity 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 shoosh, you know.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard anybody doing this, you know, real old stuff, you know, boogity boogity boogity. And I says, where are you from? He says, yeah, I'm from Glasgow, son. I says, what are you doing over here? He says, well, I heard there's loads of bands over here. I'm looking for a job, you know. And I says, well, we've got a band and all, you know. And he says, well, I'd love to come down and see it. Was that not the worst thing I ever did?
That's right.
But we were rehearsing in Doogie Nights. Do you remember the old rehearsal rooms?
Up the
Victoria
stairs.
Street. And I brought him to there. I'm sure we were all there the first night.
Hey, do you remember the last gig he was on, though? You remember the last gig he was ever on with us?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. He ran out of the hall in a gorilla suit. Remember, he had this gorilla suit? And he ran. That's the last time I saw him. We never saw him again. We were playing, and he runs right out the front door in a gorilla suit. Where was that?
It was Crossgar.
Crossgar. Yeah.
Crossgar.
My lover stands on golden sands and watches the ships that go sailing.
Sounds very exotic, doesn't it? And speaking of things exotic, if my father were alive, I don't know what he would say about these palm trees in his beloved docks area. And in regards to ships, at any given time, any day of the week, this particular waterline would have been totally crowded with ships, from the Hessian boat to the Liverpool boat, the Isle of Man, the Ardrossan, and the Glasgow boat, which has a special fondness for myself because about 40 years ago, 5 wee fellas from East Belfast stepped onto that boat to what we thought was going to be our big musical adventure. I remember going home to my mother and father and saying, I was in the post office at the time, and I says, I want to go professional. My dad says to me, you're right in the head. He says, what have you got? I says, this guy says he's 6 weeks work for us in Scotland, and we're going to take off because we're not getting anywhere here. Dad says, catch yourself on. He says, 6 weeks work playing on a banjo. My mother's going, leave him alone, it's what he wants to do. But I mean, that's, how did you break the news to your mother?
I just said to my mother, I'm packing my job in. My mother said, what, you're packing your job, what for? I says, I'm going away to Scotland with the boys in the band. She couldn't believe it. Yeah. So, and she was very annoyed about it.
You were in Thomas S. Dixon's.
And the Builders, yeah. That was my very first job. And I was giving up this great job, and it was crap. It was absolute crap.
I mean, the furthest I'd ever been in my life was Dundalk.
I think we're some the same, yeah.
We'd never been on a boat in our lives. Yeah. And I remember we were on that Glasgow boat, but my father said to me, he says, look, you'll be back in about 2 or 3 weeks. Well, we did eventually come back, but not till about a year later. We'd gone round Scotland, we'd starved in London, and we went to Germany and had a hit record. And when we arrived off the boat, who was there to meet us? My father in his flat back lorry. We were a little bit older, a little bit wiser, but we still loved our music. Right, George, take it away.
The young ones, darling, we're the young ones, and the young ones shouldn't be afraid to live, love, while the flame is strong, for we may not be the young ones very long. This is some perfect song. So I don't have to dream alone.
Rock and roll.